This topic is the Garden of Eden was a setup. For those of you who are not familiar with the story, the Garden of Eden in the Bible speaks about God placing man and woman in the Garden of Eden and telling them to take care of the garden. And then the devil coming in the guise of a serpent, tempting them to eat of the forbidden fruit of which they were told not to eat. Hence came the fall of man and man losing his special relationship with God. So the story goes in the Bible. So today I will be giving you 10 reasons why I personally think that the Garden of Eden was a setup. Reason number 1, the location of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Genesis 3:2, quote, "The woman answered the serpent, we may eat the fruit of the trees of the garden, but of the fruit of the tree in the middle of the garden, God has said, you must not eat of it or touch it or you will die." End quote. Question to parents. Where do you place items you do not want your kids to see? Things like porn, dildos, guns. Has there been any occurrence where siblings shot each other with daddy's gun that was kept carelessly on the living room table? Imagine placing chocolates on the living room table and telling your kids not to touch them. You're just asking for trouble. Reason number 2 why I think the Garden of Eden was a setup. Eve had the thinking capacity of a child. 1 Timothy 2:14, quote, "And it was not Adam who was deceived, but the woman who was deceived and fell into transgression." End quote. It would likely have been a different outcome if Adam was approached first. Hebrews 5:12-14, quote, "For everyone who partakes only of milk is not accustomed to the word of righteousness, for he is an infant. But solid food is for the mature, who because of practice have their senses trained to discern good and evil." End quote. Deuteronomy 1:39, quote, "Moreover, your little ones who you said will become a prey, and your sons, who this day have no knowledge of good or evil, shall enter there. And I will give it to them, and they shall possess it." End quote. So the Bible acknowledges that there are those who have no knowledge of good and evil. 1 Peter 3:7, quote, "Likewise, ye husbands, dwell with them according to knowledge, giving honor unto the wife as unto the weaker vessel." End quote. Reason number 3 why I believe the Garden of Eden was a setup is criminal negligence. Does the child know the difference between good and evil? Criminal negligence is the failure on the part of a person on whom a duty is placed to take reasonable steps to prevent a certain bad outcome from happening. Examples of criminally negligent crimes are criminally negligent homicide and negligent endangerment of a child. The father leaves a gun where kids can easily find it. One of the kids takes the gun, and in the game of cowboys and Indians, pulls the trigger while pointing to his sibling. This has happened quite a few times, and many times the parent has been charged with criminal endangerment of a child. The father in the US who came home to meet the aftermath of a similar scenario fled. He didn't wait for the police to turn up, he just took off. And the reason why? Reason number 4 why I think the Garden of Eden was a setup. The superior thinking ability of the serpent. Genesis 3:1, quote, "Now the serpent was more crafty than any of the wild animals the Lord God had made." End quote. Why were they not approached by a rabbit or a termite? What will have been the outcome? Now, granted, some people might be thinking that, hold on, it was the devil that chose the medium, or the animal that he was going to use. But hold that thought till we get to point 10 and revisit that thought again, yeah? Thank you. All right, reason number 5 why I feel the Garden of Eden was a setup Why were they not told of the tree of life? Genesis 3:22-24. Quote, Then the Lord God said, Behold, the man has become like one of us, knowing good and evil. And now he might stretch out his hand and take also from the tree of life and eat and live forever. End quote. So the group God was talking to knew of the tree of life. Why wasn't the tree of life mentioned to Adam and Eve? Let's say you have a gun and a dictionary. You place the gun in the center of the living room table and warn your kids not to touch it. And you place the dictionary in the inner cupboard and never mention it. Think about that. Reason number 6, why I believe the Garden of Eden was a setup. Reverse psychology. Reverse psychology is a technique involving the assertion of a belief or behavior that is opposite to the one desired, with the expectation that this approach will encourage the subject of the persuasion to do what actually is desired. A book written by Derek Chaddy, Theories in Social Psychology, says, I quote, warning labels on violent television programs across 5 age groups ranging from 9 to 21 years and over were more likely to attract persons in these groups to the violent program than information labels and no labels, end quote. The idea is that when you are told you can't have or do something, the following 3 things happen. You want it more, you rebel by reasserting your freedom, you feel angry at the person restricting your freedom. A common form of reverse psychology is to forbid an action. When you say, do not X, you're also implanting the suggestion to do X. If they say they will do something, you can express doubt that they will do this. Reason number 7 why I feel the Garden of Eden was a setup. Judiciary. I'm going to give the legal definitions of 2 terms here. The first one is entrapment, and the second one is enticement. So entrapment is when law enforcement persuades someone to commit a crime that they will otherwise would not have committed. So you have your typical average bloke or lady going to work. They've never had drugs or crime on their mind, and law enforcement go out of their way to cajole them to do some sort of psyops to get them to buy drugs, get involved with the trade, start using drugs, but it never was part of their plan. They never had any inclinations towards it. This is entrapment. Law enforcement persuading someone to commit a crime that they will otherwise not have committed. Enticement is when the person will have committed or intended to commit the crime anyway. So you have a typical drug lord. This is, bread and butter. Law enforcement possibly will have been building up a case against this person. They just need maybe just one more event to close the case, and they just set up something like a sting, a sting operation or a honey trap. That is enticement. Entrapment is a defense to criminal charges, and is based on interaction between police officers and the defendant prior to or during the alleged crime. A typical entrapment scenario arises when law enforcement officers use coercion and other overbearing tactics to induce someone to commit a crime. It can be used as mitigation in sentencing. However, and if the police or other government agents lure someone into committing a crime and then try to prosecute them for doing so, this will be considered an abuse of court process, and the judge could offer a stay of proceedings. An abuse of court process, and the judge could order a stay of proceedings if it is entrapment. Reason number 8 why I believe the Garden of Eden was a setup. Why did God dump the devil on his most prized possession, planet Earth? Why not Alpha Centauri, Saturn, maybe even Jupiter? The universe is huge, big. Let's not even get started on trying to quantify. We're still discovering. But God didn't want the devil and his horde to be in heaven. Preferred them to be on earth, which was supposed to be the domain of man. And why did God call his creation good even though the devil was present in the garden? Genesis 1:31 quote, "Then God saw everything he had made, and indeed it was very good. So the evening and the morning were the sixth day," end quote. Revelations 12:12, "Therefore rejoice," quote, "Therefore rejoice, O heavens, and you who dwell in them. Woe to the inhabitants of the earth and the sea, for the devil has come down to you, having great wrath, because he knows that he has a short time," end quote. Question to the listener: will you allow a known convict or pedophile come and live with you and your 3 kids in your house, even though you own the entire continent of Africa and North America? Reason number 9 why I feel the Garden of Eden was a setup. Security. Why was God so quick to secure access to the tree of life? Genesis 3:24, quote, "So he drove the man out, and at the east of the Garden of Eden he stationed the cherubim and the flaming sword, which turned every direction to guard the way to the tree of life," end quote. Why wasn't the tree of life mentioned to Adam and Eve? You have a gun, same example I've been using. You have a gun and an encyclopedia. You place the gun in the center of the living room table and warn your kids not to touch it. You place the encyclopedia in the inner cupboard and never mention it. Then later put the book or the encyclopedia in a safe. Which one did you want your kids to come across, the gun or the book? The one you never mentioned, or the one you put in the living room? The one that they will definitely have come across very easily, or the one that they didn't even know existed? The gun or the book? Reason number 10 why I believe the Garden of Eden was a setup. Has to do with the omnipotent plan of God. 1 Peter 1:19-20, quote, "But with the precious blood of Christ, as of a lamb without blemish and without spot, who verily was foreordained before the foundation of the world, but was manifest in these last times for you," end quote. Isaiah 14:27, quote, "For the Lord Almighty has proposed, who can thwart him? His hand is stretched out, and who can turn it back?" End quote. Ecclesiastes 7:3-2, quote, "Consider what God has done. Who can straighten what he has made crooked?" End quote. Isaiah 14:27 says, "For the Lord God has purpose, who can thwart him? His hand is stretched out, who can turn him back?" 1 Peter 1:19-20, "But with the precious blood of Christ, as of a lamb without blemish and without spot, who verily was foreordained before the foundation of the world, but was manifest in these last times for you." What does that mean? So the whole entire premise of the Bible was God showing his love to his select few, those who he had chosen. So he intended that man will fall. He intended that Jesus Christ will come and be a propitiation for sins. And he will do this to show his love and care for his chosen select few. This was ordained before the foundation of the world, what was manifest in the last times. Isaiah said, "God has proposed, who can thwart him? Who can strengthen what he has made crooked?" So even before Adam and Eve came onto the scene, even before the Garden of Eden, even before creation, it was foreordained foreordained. According to the Bible, which being is stronger than God? Who can strengthen what he has made crooked? There is no amount of willpower, no amount of brain training that Adam and Eve will have gone through that will have made them able to say no to the devil. Nothing. Were they stronger than God? Can they turn around his hand if he has stretched it out? Who can strengthen what he has made crooked? There is nothing they will have done. Which is why everything from the very beginning points to it being a plan. The location, putting that tree in the center, the very center of the garden, which was point number one. Number two, Eve having a diminished thinking capacity compared to Adam. Number three, criminal negligence, clearly endangering someone who you're supposed to be taking care of. Number four, the superior thinking ability of the serpent compared to other animals. Number five, keeping them in ignorance of the tree of life. Number six, reverse psychology. Number seven, allowing an occasion of entrapment to occur. Number eight, dumping a fearful, evil horde on a tiny pale blue dot, planet Earth, where his beloved children were dwelling. Number nine, securing access to the tree of life, even though the tree of the knowledge of good and evil had no access, not even a fence, it had no security, nothing, no tickets, free access. But once man fell, he put a flaming sword around the tree of life, which they didn't even know about. It was not just a weapon of war, it was a flaming sword. So if you even try to touch it, it will burn you. And it was moving up and down, such that you couldn't even hold it. And there was a cherub there, a divine being, a supernatural being to guard access. Adam and Eve stood no chance against all these odds. Stood no chance. It wasn't up to them to choose. The odds were properly stacked against them. And for those of you who are still thinking, no, they could choose, no, they intentionally fell, was the fall of man. Hold on. Proverbs 16:33. Quote, the lot is cast into the lap, but its every decision is from the Lord. It's every decision. So when you roll the dice, when you go to gamble, in the realms of mathematical probability, every outcome is from God. It didn't matter what Adam and Eve would have thought or wanted to do. No. Proverbs 19:21, quote, many are the plans in the mind of a man, but it is the purpose of the Lord that will stand, end quote. Thank you very much for listening. These 10 reasons convinced me that the Garden of Eden was indeed a setup.